Hey everybody, how you doing? Hey, I've had some comments and some questions over the last couple months here from my loyal subscribers about how I run my setup and do my screen captures and the overlays and everything, my recordings. So I'm going to put together a quick tutorial here on how I have things set up. Now, a lot of this information, is put out there on YouTube and other forums, great amounts of information. But it seems to be kind of piecemeal, more specifically geared to each individual program or app. I'm going to kind of put it all together here. Your mileage may vary. Understand that I run in windowed mode, not full screen. Okay, let's take a look here. My PC is an HP Omen Obelisk that I bought at Best Buy about a year ago. I think it was like $1,050. As you see now, it's about $1,250. This is the exact desktop PC that I have. I find it to be more than enough of what I need for my purposes, and really literally for $1,250 out of the box, plug and play, fantastic PC for iRacing and recording and uploading to YouTube. However, understand that everything that I just mentioned is completely dependent on your connection speed. I am lucky enough here in Central Iowa, I have a fantastic connection speed through my internet provider. And as you can see here, it is triple screen ready. The screen recorder that I use is from OBS Studio. Links to all these programs and apps are in the video description below the video. Click See More. Be aware that there is another screen recorder out there called Streaming OBS. I use OBS Studio. My main go-to overlay app program is Simracingapps. I use the Jimmie Johnson spotter pack for all my spotter callouts. I recently, though, added CrewChief as a spotter app. Now, I've got everything on CrewChief turned off or down in volume, so I'm not hearing that spotter call out. It's a lot different program. You've probably heard it on other YouTube videos. The reason I put CrewChief on is it has a really cool option in the settings that for iRacing you can tick an option box that when you come in for a pit stop, it will give you automatically the proper amount of fuel based on your maximum fuel consumption rate to get to the end of the race. You can also add in an extra lap or two. I've got 2 extra laps added in. So if you saw my Watkins Glen Cup race, when I came in on my very first pit stop, number one, at that point in time, my fuel rate showed that I had enough fuel in the tank to get to the end of the race. But as you know, that fuel rate and what you're seeing in the black box is not really accurate, and as time goes by, that can actually drop. Anyway, I've got the 2 extra laps option ticked, so that equaled 3.4 gallons. So when I came in for my first pit stop, even though CrewChief was seeing that I theoretically had enough fuel to get to the end of the race, it added the 3.4 gallons as my 2-lap buffer. Then the next time I came in, it did the same thing. So just a quick note on that, whatever buffer you add here on the auto fuel in CrewChief, when you come in, if you need no fuel to get to the end of the race as it is calculated, it will still give you every single time you come in that buffer, that lap buffer, in my case 2 laps, every single time you come in for a pit stop. But anyway, I ran out of fuel at Chicagoland on the truck, so a subscriber told me about CrewChief and this little option. So I have CrewChief installed just simply for that option. As I noted, I run in windowed mode, and while you can't see it because I have it trimmed out of my screen recorder, I have the taskbar on the bottom always up. I do not have it in auto hide. In my documents folder, I have a folder called My iRacing Stuff, and we open that up, and then we go to Simracingapps folder that I've created, and in here is where I store all of the icons, the actual apps actually. When you download the program, it's in downloads, and then you can move that to any folder that you want. And like I said, I kind of store all mine in one place. So like the most recent version here you can see is 1.15. So what I do is I store that, I pin it to the taskbar, right click on it and pin to taskbar. As you can see, this most recent update I do not have pinned to the taskbar. So this one here, 1.14, I would right click on it, unpin from the taskbar, that takes it out, and then right click on the new one and pin to taskbar, that puts that icon on the taskbar. The reason I do this is there have been several times I've been loaded up and ready to race and I've forgotten to fire this app up or the CrewChief app, and while I'm in Sim I can just go down to the taskbar and click on the icon and activate the program. So to do the same thing for CrewChief, you come over to Program Files x86 in your C drive, click on Brighton IT Ltd. CrewChief version 4 is what I've got. Come down here to the application, right click on it and pin to taskbar, as you see that I already have. Okay, let's add some Simracingapps overlays that you can use in the car. Again, you can't see the taskbar because I have it trimmed out with the recorder as I'm using it right now. So I'm going to go down to the taskbar and click on the Simracingapps icon and let it load up. You see this little program here that runs in the background load up and jump through all of its hoops, and then the page opens up that has all of the apps that are available to you. So once that gets done loaded there, I'm just going to minimize, don't X this out, I'm going to minimize this down to out of the way. Okay, here's where all the magic happens in getting those overlays. There's just a ton here. I mean, there are dash gauge clusters, there are individual gauges. You can do, there's bars here, bar gauges. There's just a ton of stuff you can use here. So why would you want to use any of this? Well, I use one of the supplemental gauge packages, this one right here, because in the past I was running around the track and my water temperature was flashing red because it was in the danger zone, and I didn't see it due to my driver height and my field of view and everything, and I just wasn't paying attention. So I put this supplemental gauge cluster up on the dashboard that I can see more readily. I've already got this one here installed, so we're going to install one that I don't have currently, and that's this one up here. You can see it's a slightly different configuration. Okay, as it stands right here, I don't have any of this selected because I'm not using this. So the first thing you're going to want to do is click frame. Some of these overlays without a frame or in transparent mode are movable and configurable to different shapes and sizes. Some of them are not, so I always start out with frame because you can change the size there. So we've got frame. As of right now, I've got everything connected, so when I click on this, it's going to show. If you don't want to have that on your desktop when you're not in iRacing, you're going to want to uncheck not connected, which I usually do. We're going to leave that all as it is right now. So we're going to click on the little picture here of this dash gauge cluster, and there it comes up, and you can see it has a frame. It has this bar, the informational bar there, and as I put my mouse over it, I can change the shape and the size of it how I want to. Okay, so let's put this in your car so you can see it when you're in game. I'm going to come down here and get into iRacing, just going to test car on track. And remember, the reason that you're seeing this now is because we have it also on unconnected. Later on, you will take that out so it's just not up all the time. Okay, here we are in the car. Pretend that all these overlays that you see here that I already have installed are not there. We're just working with a blank canvas, if you will. Okay, so you can just simply move this down to where you want it. You can resize it, stretch it out. You can put it anywhere you want, okay? But it's got that ugly frame. So I'm going to go down to the taskbar and click on the icon again. That'll bring up the page, the Simracingapps page. And remember, we're working with this one right here, frame. I'll untick frame, and the frame disappears. We'll get rid of that. And now, and see, you can't move it. You can't, well, you can resize it. Some of them you can, some of them you can't. Okay, but let's say, oh, and you can move this one too. Okay, so this one's pretty easy. You can just kind of put it where you want it, stretch it out, you know, make it any size you want. But if you find one that you cannot move, you would just come back down, open up the page, and then go to frame again to give you that frame. Move it, resize it. It's a little bit of trial and error. Okay, now we're going to untick frame. I believe with this one there is no transparency, but we're going to go ahead and click transparency and see what happens. And, oh, it takes away the background. So if you don't want that, there's the diamond plate. You go to transparent and it removes the diamond plate. You want the diamond plate back, just click on the picture and, well, you've got to take transparent out, click back on the picture, and there you have the diamond plate. So you've got those options there for you. Now you're going to want to click load on startup. That way it will be there the next time you fire up iRacing. It'll be there right there for you. Now over here, I generally click not connected. That way when you start, the first thing I do every morning when I fire up my PC is I click that icon. It just runs in the background 24/7, if you will. When I load up iRacing, it automatically loads. However, if I had not connected, check marked, that would always be there no matter what I'm doing. Okay, so I always uncheck not connected. In car, of course, you want to have that checked. In garage, I usually uncheck that. And in replay, I uncheck it also. So this will load up on the startup of the game. It'll be in car, but that is the only place you will see it. All right, let's take a look at the track maps here. This one right here, track map, you can see I have it on frame, load on startup, in car, in garage, in replay. That is the map that I have on my supplemental monitor, the picture that I'm showing you right now, in full size pretty much on that monitor, that I can just glance up and see the reference to the leader and where I am on the tracks, you know, and etc. It really helps getting off a pit road during practice or in race to see where cars are at. Now, the little transparent map that I have in the lower left-hand corner of the actual cockpit of the car, you can see already this is track map, no background, and it's on transparent, load on startup, in car only. Let's see what happens if I put a frame on that. And there it is. You can see now it's not transparent, and that looks kind of ugly. You can do it either way you want. I prefer to have it as transparent. And there it loads back up right there. All right, here on the pit road indicator here, again, you can see I have transparent only in the car. This one here, let me close this one out. This one here I think is one you cannot move, or you can resize it, but you can't move it. Okay, so to move that, you would have to come up and add a frame to it. Then you can move it. So again, like I said, some of this is a little bit of trial and error in placement. Okay, so that's a quick overview on how to get those gauges and little overlays in cockpit for you. As you can see here, you have a lot of overlays that are various configurations for the standings and the name. I generally have found, and I actually contacted the individual that makes Simracingapps, the timing is off from what the game is providing, and he indicated it's just a lag on what iRacing is providing as far as data goes. For some reason or other, in their relative board, in the black box, it's pretty tight. However, in Simracingapps, it can sometimes show you over a minute behind the guy when you're actually only 1 second behind the guy. So just, you know, be aware of that. Okay, one of the really cool overlays here in Simracingapps is the CrewChief pit controller. And I'm going to put up a picture of my cockpit again, and you can see on the right-hand upper monitor is where I have that set up. You can click on each individual little spot on the pit controller, and it will reflect and send that information to the game. So you don't have to be going through the ticks and the checks on the black box up here in-game that iRacing provides. You do have to move the mouse over to that supplemental monitor and click and everything there, but I really like it. Along those lines, let me scroll down here, they have a widget, an app if you will, an overlay for camera selector. And I believe I'm using, yes, I'm using the 30 camera. Yeah, the 30 camera selector 30. This is over on that other monitor too, and I only have it showing up during replays and in Garage, as you can see here. And what is really cool about that, I don't know, you probably can't see it too well here on the little icons on this screen right here, but it has all the cameras that you have available when you're doing a replay. So you just click on the little green bar that shows cockpit, and then you can click on the little green bar that shows blimp. You don't have to go down to the drop down menu, which screws up your replay recording. You can do that all off screen on the other monitor. Kind of cool. All right, let's get you screen capturing and game capturing your iRacing exploits. You've got OBS Studio downloaded and installed. You've got it opened up on your desktop. You will not be seeing anything like you were seeing right here. You will be starting with a completely blank canvas. What you're going to want to do is come over here to the lower left, Scenes. This should be all completely blank. You're going to want to click plus to add a scene. Now, I am not going to do that because I will then lose my ability to record what we're doing. So, we're going to click plus. It'll ask you what you want to name it. You can name it anything you want. You can see that for the testing purposes here, I just left it at Scene 2. You can rename it anything you want. Just name it iRacing to begin with. You can rename it by right-clicking on any of these scenes and rename. Okay, so I'm on my display record, so I can capture the actual monitor. And over here, underneath sources, this will be blank. As you see right now, it is showing my main monitor, but for you, it'll be blank. So now you click Add, then select Game Capture. You will have nothing under Add Existing because you're starting fresh. I'm just going to leave this as Game Capture. You can rename it as anything that you want, and we're going to click OK. Are we still seeing? Yes, you are still seeing what I'm seeing. Okay, Mode, Capture Specific Window. Then the window drop-down menu opens up. Here's where you're going to want to come down, and you have to have iRacing running, by the way, if I didn't mention that already. Have it up and running. You don't have to be, in the car, just have it running. And then you will see iRacing Sim 64 DX11.exe. That's the program. Select that. Leave everything here just as it is. However, if you don't want to have the cursor captured in the recording, and I usually have that turned off so you don't see the cursor, but for our purposes here right now, we're going to leave that checked. Click OK. Okay, now, understand that what we're seeing right now is my monitor recorder. So, Game Capture is the iRacing window. How come we're not seeing it? Well, we're going to come down, we're going to maximize iRacing, then minimize it. There it is. All right. Kind of had to trigger it there just a little bit. Okay, we're back on the display monitor recording mode, and I'm in this mode to show you how to center the iRacing window. I cannot record that as a capture to show you. Okay, so what you're seeing here is, these nodes here, these square nodes around the window, and in my best memory, by default, when you open up the iRacing window, it is all the way to the top and offset just a little bit. There's showing some black bars. And so if you want to reset this, you can reset it in any configuration that you really choose to. You come down here until your cursor turns into a little double arrow on one of the nodes, and you can resize the window any way that you want. And behind it you can see the game capture window, but we're just going to ignore that for right now. So like I said, as my best recollection is, the iRacing window will look something similar in placement like this. I definitely know it was set all the way to the top. Okay, so your cursor on that window, right click on it, transform. Then you can come down here, you can fit to screen, stretch to screen, center to screen, center vertically, center. I do center screen. And you saw how that snapped back into the center. Now, the actual iRacing game capture does not have the black bars on the side. However, it does have little black bars on the bottom and the top. I kind of like them. It's a nice separation of the top and the bottom, in my personal preference. If you wanted it to be completely full screen, right click on it, transform, fit to screen. And there you see how it snapped out those black bars. Okay, like I said, this was using my display capture. The same principle would apply to your iRacing game capture. Okay, so we're in the cockpit in the game recording, and you want to see the overlays. You say, hey, didn't we set that all up earlier? No, we didn't. What we did earlier was what you see as the driver on your monitor, not what is being shown in the game. Now, I can show that to you by jumping from the iRacing capture, which we are seeing right now, and going to my monitor recorder. Okay, this is my monitor recorder, recording what is physically on the monitor. Here are the overlays that we produced and arranged previously. That is for you, the driver. So you say to yourself, why don't you just use the display, as we see right here, as your game capture? Well, quite frankly, when you use the game capture, you get a little bit better recording. So what you have to do now is put the overlays on top of the game capture, which is a whole different set of procedure than what we did earlier. Okay, so here we have the Simracingapps main window opened up. I now have the OBS Studios screen recorder on the other monitor, and we're not seeing the infinity mirror. Sorry about that. I should have done that earlier. Okay, so anyway, in order to get the overlays on the in-game capture, the first thing we need to do is come down here to the server URL, and you see it right there. Copy that. I don't know if we can copy that. Let's try that. I haven't tried this. No, you can't highlight and copy it. Anyway, type that exact number into your web browser. And then bookmark that, as you've seen that I have right here. Okay, now this is a completely different page. This is a web-based page that basically, you can see all the widgets and the apps here, is the same as, let me bring it up, this page, which is the program page. Find the overlay that you wish to put in-game, click on the picture. A new window opens up that shows the item that you have selected. Up here in the informational window is its URL. Highlight, copy. You now close that window out, minimize out of your browser. Okay, I've got the recorder back down on the main screen here so we can see what I'm doing. And remember, I'm on display record. You'd be doing this underneath iRacing. Over here in sources, click plus. You're going to want to find browser. You can see that I have a whole bunch of things listed already. We're just going to use browser, create new. Okay. URL. Highlight that, or get rid of it. Paste. This is the URL path that we just copied. You can change the width there. We're going to leave that alone for right now. We're just going to click OK. There you see the overlay. You can resize it. Hold Shift key on your keyboard, and you can stretch it, without it being uniform in ratio. Or right-click on it, Properties, and you can change the height and the width ratios there, that way. See how that shrunk down? and then you can place it anywhere you want in the cockpit. And then the really cool thing, and remember this is browser, I didn't rename that gauges because I've already done that and it won't let you rename something. But anyway, so I've got it set, say I got it set where I want, hit the little lock button and it will not, you cannot move it now. It stays where it is. See the little eyeball thing there? You don't want it there, click on that and it's not showing. Click on it and there it shows. So just to repeat, to find the overlay that you want in car, whatever it be, whatever it is, click on it, copy the URL, add to the source, browser, and then replace this URL right here that you see as browser source. And there it is. The reason this one came back up was I guess I didn't rename it. Okay, so that's why this one came up instead of the other one that I selected. If I had renamed it, it would have shown this, the other one. So anyway, and you can delete these as you wish or add to them. Okay, so I'm just gonna jump through this one more time. We got browser, display capture, game capture, image. That's how I put my watermark, my Studio Davi 2020. I made a screen capture of that within my editing software, which is Power Director 17, as an image. So I click on image here. Okay, then it goes, then you just go to your desktop, iRacing, common files, photos, equipment, was it there? No, but I can put Thrustmaster. If I selected that, okay, now Thrustmaster is an image I can place anywhere as an overlay for my game capture. There's a bunch of options in here. Most of these I don't use, you know, I'm just pretty simple, but the image is the one that I use. And then, of course, the browser, which is the URL, which is what you want to use in order to put any of these widgets as an overlay in the in-game capture. Okay, and again, I can't show this to you because if I jump over to one of the iRacing capture scenes, then it's not going to show you what we're seeing right here. But if I were to click on, say, NASCAR Cup Car right here, it would have everything listed here, all the overlays that I have on that window. It does it by default, but you want to make sure that iRacing game capture is always the bottom item in the sources here, because these are called overlays. Every single overlay that you put on top of the other will cover up the other one, if you understand that. So you always want to have iRacing at the bottom and then each individual overlay on top of that. Of course, if you don't have any overlays overlapping each other, they show individually, you know, flat on the screen. But you could move one over the other if you chose to. So I'm going to click on my NASCAR Cup scene, and I believe you will see that. I'm not sure about this. I'm going to click on it now. You should be seeing my NASCAR Cup overlays. You're not going to see the map because I'm disconnected, but you see everything, including the picture of my car, which I took a snapshot of the car on a screen capture, edited out the background, saved that to a folder, and then I used the image function in order to place that where it is. Going back to my monitor recorder, as you can see here, I have my Cup car, my XFINITY car, my Gander car. Now here's the thing. Every single one of these are the exact same with the exception of the car or the truck picture, and with some minor placement differences. And you think to yourself, man, do I have to go through that for each single one? No. Right click on the scene, NASCAR Cup car here, for example, and I'm not going to do this because it will then, we'll lose the screen capture. Right click on the scene and then a window comes up, a drop-down window, and select duplicate. Another window comes up that by default will simply add a number to the scene that you have. In this case, it would be NASCAR Cup 2. You can then rename it whatever you want. So when I created my additional scenes for each additional car, I duplicated the NASCAR Cup scene, renamed it XFINITY scene. Now, the one difference between the two is I use the digital gauges on the Cup car, but I use the analog gauges on both the XFINITY and the Gander truck. So that's the difference. That one I did have to go in to the web-based page of Simracingapps, found that gauge cluster, copied the URL, and pasted it in, and replaced the digital dash that was in the Cup car. Everything else was the same with the exception of, like I said, minor placements. So it's a right click on a scene, duplicate, rename the scene, and then that scene is there as it's a duplicate, it's a twin. And then you can go in there and make little minor adjustments and not have to add each individual overlay to each different scene that you have. Okay, let's go over some settings here real quick. Recording settings. Click the settings button. Come to output and recording. Now, some of these settings are grayed out since I am recording right now. You want to be on advanced. I think by default it is simple. Change it to advanced. Standard type. Your recording path, you can browse to the folder that you want the file captures to be captured in. The output should probably be 1920 by 1080. That's 16 by 9 full scale. There is a setting here that you can do what they call a remux, and I do not have that checked. I'm kind of playing with fire that if you have a blue screen of death or other power loss or something like that, what you've recorded up to that point is rendered unusable, whereas if you have that checked, it becomes what they call a, where's it at there, a MKV file. And then when you get done, it has to remux, and that can take a lot of time with an hour-long recording, so I do not have that checked. Okay. So the most important thing to look at here is your bit rate. I have experimented all over the place with this. I've gotten some bad information from some of these guys on YouTube about this. The takeaway is you want to have the recording be as smooth as possible, of course. I experimented with, I think it was 65,000 kbps, and man, that was just a huge file. It looked pretty good, but it was just a huge file to edit, render, and then upload to YouTube. The other thing to be very aware of is my recordings that I do here on my computer look absolutely crystal clear, fantastic on the PC. Not so much on YouTube. That is because YouTube has several different rendering codecs available, and only the big players with lots of subscribers and thousands of views gets the high dollar codec. I get the lower man's codec, so there's nothing I can do about that. Okay, so after some playing around, I found out that 35,000 kbps as a recording bit rate is pretty good. So I've got that set there, and I've got the max bit rate at 1,000 more, at 36,000. Okay, I left everything else the same as you see here from the default, with the exception that I found out that psycho-visual tuning, I checkmarked that, and that is for, if you hover over the, it won't bring up the information bar since I'm actually recording right now. But anyway, it's for high-speed action, recording action. And I found out that you get a little less jitter by having psycho-visual tuning checked. Okay. The other thing to remember is, depending on what your editing software is, and like I said, I use PowerDirector 17, but I imagine this is the case for any editing software. The standard rule of thumb is whatever you're recording at, you want to edit and render at a little bit less rate than you're recording. So you want to be pushing some fantastic bitrate into the editor, and then when you do your final video production, it is at a little less rate, so you're getting the best canvas, if you will, of production. So in my case, in PowerDirector 17, I have my bitrate set at 5,000 less, at 30,000. I'm recording at 35,000. I am editing and producing at 30,000, and that seems to come out really, really well. Now, that being said, there is a way to force YouTube to give you the high dollar playback codec. I experimented with this, and with my editing software, PowerDirector 17, I had to create a custom profile that was, I believe the aspect ratio was 2550 by 1440 at like 75,000 bit rate, and I was able to force YouTube to give me the better playback codec. The problem was those files were just absolutely mammoth. And when I record 2 or 3 different views, you know, outside the car, inside the car, yada yada, and then splice them all together in my editing software, I mean, when I got done rendering, number one, it took like 2 hours to render the movie on the computer. A 1 hour race took 2 hours to render, took about 8 hours to upload to YouTube, and another 4 hours for YouTube to process my standard definition up to their high definition. That was just ridiculous. And I mean, like I said, these files were massive, 10 GB file size on a 1 hour movie. So I just produced at 1080 at the 30,000 bit rate, and as you've seen on YouTube, my videos look pretty clean and pretty crisp. Okay, I think that's just about it. Just a little bit longer, quick video than I anticipated, but hey, they got a lot of information out there. Hope you guys can take something with this. You know, if I've missed something or if you got some questions, hey, feel free to ask. I'll answer them, or maybe make another update video in case there's some differences and we can figure this stuff out. All right, hey, thanks for coming along for the ride, and we'll see you next time.